Yeah, what's up? What's going on, Rudy, man? How are you?
What's up, family? How you doing today?
We're doing all right, man. What about yourself?
I'm tired.
It's a little chilly out here, you know?
I'm nervous. It's snowing.
We got snow in Dallas, Texas, guys. That's
weird.
crazy. Anyways, let's get straight into it, man. We're not here to play games. We're not here to waste time. Why don't you tell the people what we got going on?
So, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Scatter Roots podcast. What we have in store for you is hopefully a podcast between Kevin and myself. We've been discussing this for a while that will bring some valuable information, conversation, and insight into your ears and life. And I think we're excited. Like I mentioned, the name of the podcast is the Scatter Roots podcast. And we are basically focused on a couple of things, right? And that's just discussing our realities as Mexican Americans in the United States, and what that feels like for, I think, a lot of people that are in a similar circumstance where they are kind of like in a cultural identity crisis, right? Like there's a lot of people that kind of have roots both in, right, where their parents came from, or maybe even themselves, where they grew up, and then like their life here in the United States. And so just kind of, two guys talking about their experiences and what they've gone through, and hopefully people can relate. And we'll explore a bunch of different topics. Some will be a little bit lighter, some will be a little bit more serious. And I think it's just important for these conversations to be had, and I think we're excited. You excited, man?
Yeah, for sure. That was very well said. Super excited. It's something that we've been wanting to do for a hot minute. It's taken us a little bit of time to get it together, but don't worry about that. We're here now. Hopefully you guys can join us through this journey, sure. And learn a little bit about us as a people, not us personally, us as a people, us as a culture, about each other, about, maybe we can learn a little bit about you guys as well. So
yeah, absolutely. No, so again, we already talked about it a little bit, but the why, I think, is important to establish here. Like, why is this podcast being recorded, and why is it worth listening to?
Because my Sundays were open.
Yeah, for sure. Like my Sunday, I purposely take Sundays off. That's my me time. No, but I mean, we have discussed the concept of ni de aquí ni de allá, right? And so what that, like, not from here, not from there, and it's this like sensation of not really knowing where you belong, right? You're not from here, you're not from there, right? When you're in the United States, you are the Mexican. When you are the Latino, in my circumstance, the Mexican. When you are in, your Latin roots, or for myself, when I'm in Mexico, right, I'm the American. And so you never have like a real place of belonging. Yeah, exactly. And so I think it's something that a lot of people can relate to, and conversations about their realities need to be had. And there's a lot of value in that. And so that's kind of the why behind these conversations. And then on top of that, why us, right? So I think it's important to establish that we're just regular guys.
Oh, yeah, for sure. There's literally nothing special about us.
Yeah, literally. We're friends from high school that kind of stay connected through college and even now. And so, we're not social scientists. We're not experts in this subject matter. We're not here to like teach and,
Absolutely.
Bring up a topic and say like, hey, today's lesson is this or that. We're just normal guys, and I think it's important for us to establish that so people can relate to that, right? Just our realities as just everyday individuals is the realities that like a lot of people live, and so I feel like they'll feel the same kind of things that we feel in their day-to-day life. Yeah,
I think you said that's super important to highlight. We're not here to like teach. I especially don't consider myself someone like super well informed. I mean, I'd like to think I'm somewhat well informed. You know what I mean? But that by no means am I the authority or on these things. And I don't think that's what we're here to do. We're just here to speak from our own personal experiences, our own personal anecdotal stories, or whatever. How we see things, share opinions, share thoughts. Maybe it's entertaining when it can be, when appropriate. Serious when it should be. Just kind of. You look at different aspects of our lives and experiences, like you said, as people who perhaps don't always fit in.
For sure. Absolutely. And then that kind of, opens up the door to like, well, if that's not who we are, then, who are we? So I guess we'll open it up with that, Kevin. Who are you? And I guess just keeping in mind, like asking yourself, what's your cultural identity and what do you think shaped that as you tell us about who you are?
Yeah, so my name's Kevin Ortiz. I'm 26 years old. I like long walks on the beach. And no, I'm kidding. That's a really weird question to ask someone,
it
right?
Is.
Like, who are you? It's so weird. But if I had to kind of try to boil it down with the context of what we're talking about here, I'm the son of two, at the time, undocumented immigrants. My parents came here when they were young. They met here. They had me at some point, and I've lived here all my life. Right, I was born in California, but I was raised essentially in Dallas.
And how long did you stay in Cali?
I don't even know. I have no recollection.
No memories of.
Yeah,
okay.
2 years, a year. I have no clue. I couldn't tell you. Okay. My whole life has been Dallas. But yeah, so I'm someone who just grew up. I guess my cultural identity is I'm very, very strongly, I'm very strong for myself. I'm a Mexican. Yeah. I consider
myself Mexican. You identify with the Mexican aspects.
Yeah, my dad is a Mexican. Okay. My mom is Guatemalan, but I mean, I could talk about that a little bit later.
Which I thought was very interesting. I didn't know that at all.
Yeah. Well, I didn't either until I was like 13 years old. I had no idea. She's very assimilated into Mexican culture. That's why I'm saying I'm Mexican. Yeah. I'd never say Guatemalan. That's not because I'm ashamed or anything like that. It's just almost be kind of fake for me to say it because I didn't grow up with any of that culture.
Yeah.
At all. So, anyways, I'm someone who just is super proud of my background of being a Mexican. I grew up in a big bubble, in a big Mexican bubble. By that, I just mean I was very kind of sheltered throughout my childhood. When I started school, I could have sworn, I could be wrong, but I could have sworn that classes were just in Spanish. Like it was just Spanish, right?
You said that.
So, we were just all Hispanic kids, Latin kids, Latino kids, vibing, right? But so eventually I moved to Mesquite.
No English, just vibes.
Yeah, no English, just vibes. So I moved to Mesquite, and it was a bit of a culture shock, right? That's when I finally shared a classroom with American, actual American white people, black people, whatever, right?
How old were you?
This is second grade.
Okay.
This is however old that is. And I just remember coming home from school that first day of school, and I spoke a little English because of TV I would watch, but even then most of our TV was in Spanish, right? We were watching Univision, but I just remember coming home I can't puedo hablar inglés, I don't fit in. Anyways, just fast forward a little bit. So I that being said, that's just kind of pointing out the fact that I just grew up I'm super close to my family. Mm-hmm. So I think that played a huge part in.
You got closer to your family when you went into that bubble where you didn't fit in.
Say that again?
Once you went to school where it wasn't other Latinos.
Oh, no, I got you.
Did you get closer with your
It's not necessarily that I got closer. It's just kind of, we've always had strong family values, kind of. Okay. My dad's always been the guy, everybody, or the people in this room are the most important people, period, right? Friends come and go type thing. Yeah. So it just got always ingrained in my mind that, family first, blah, 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 blah. So, I love my family, right? I'm super, super tight with them. I'm super close to my parents. And so that just kind of led me to be very, ingrained in the way they grew up, right? I kind of wanted to be like my dad. I wanted to be, more Mexican. And it's almost kind of I do want to be more Mexican, you know what I mean? I say all that, and I consider myself Mexican. And I almost to the point where, because I am so Mexican, I don't really feel much American loyalty or patriotism, I guess.
Got you.
If that makes any sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
I see the flag, it's whatever. I don't know the national anthem, whatever.
You don't know it at all?
I know, oh, say, can you the beginning, and that's it. The harmonies.
But do you know the Mexican national anthem?
I know more of it. I'm not going to sit here. So that's what I'm saying. I wish I was more, you know what I mean? I'm kind of, and you said it, right? Ni de aquí, ni de allá. I think if I were to go to Mexico, and I went last year, and I felt like an outsider there, I was like, crap, I don't belong here. I'm a poser.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. That's exactly how you feel.
Yeah.
You stick out like a sore thumb, too.
For sure. I was like, bro, where am I? It was upsetting because I want to belong, right? I said, I want to kind of be more Mexican. I'm saying Mexican a lot, but that's.
Yeah, no, that's your.
I think that's kind of a quick summation of how I view my cultural identity. I'm someone who is super, super, super proud of my Mexican background, and I wish I knew more about it sometimes, right? I don't think that I fit over there as well, but I definitely feel like kind of grass is greener on the other side. Being that I lived here all my life, kind of, I'm always kind of like wondering, like, what if I lived in Mexico? And don't get me wrong, like, I'm glad that I like grew up here, sort of thing.
I've
like,
said that before too.
Yeah, for sure. Like, it's not where I'm like, dude, I hate this place. Like, fuck America. No. Like, don't get it twisted, right? It's just like I'm appreciative for what, like, being where I grew up,
the opportunity and the life that you have here.
Sure.
Yeah.
But at the same time, and we can talk about this later, but I want to get into you. I don't want to talk about too much about myself. There's some things where there's a lot of friction between like me and my loyalty to this country sort of thing, right? Like there was a lot of things where I felt like it was against me, right?
Yeah.
But anyways, why don't you, what about you? Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, man. So I, much the same, right? I was born to one undocumented parent, my mother, in this circumstance. My dad gained his legal status in like one of the amnesties. I forget which president it was. But yeah, so when I was born, my dad, of course, had his papers, and I was actually born in the United States.
Quick question, sorry. How old is your dad?
He was born in 1961.
Okay. Only reason I'm asking because some of my dad's older brothers also came through with an amnesty, and they have.
But there was a bunch. We just don't see them now, right? Like, and they're all Republicans too, right? Which is kind of funny. Like, that's an interesting.
I didn't mean to sidetrack that, but I was just wondering.
Yeah,
go ahead.
So yeah, like much the same. Both of my parents are come from Mexico, from Durango, Mexico. You said what?
I said epa.
And then I was born in Dallas, Texas. I have two siblings, one older, one younger, both sisters. The older being actually born in Mexico. And then she came here when she was 2, and then I was born 2 years later. So I spent my whole life here. I, much the same, right, like have like this lack of loyalty or like sense of, real, like I lack American pride the way that I think a lot of Americans do, right? Especially the way we've seen it in today's day and age. I have a lot of Mexican pride, right? Like the example I've used before, right, is I would never think about getting a tattoo or like anything like that in regards to like America, the United States. But Mexico and especially like where I'm from, like Durango, Nombre de Dios, like I would definitely do that.
That scorpion tatted on you.
Yeah, bro, facts. It's coming soon. Watch, stay tuned. And so, yeah, man, so that's me, right? Born and raised in Dallas, Texas. I have a lot of Dallas pride. I have a lot of neighborhood pride, right? And that just because, I was born or raised in a neighborhood that was very, like, tight-knit, right? Like, it's a very minority, or was, right? Like, that's starting to change now. But growing up, my first language was Spanish, and then school, that kind of changed. And so, yeah, that's my basic background. Like, I'm 26 years old, went to school, UNT.
Social security number?
Well, yeah,
I'm just kidding.
That's the most valuable item to in my life, man.
Yeah, no, I think what we're seeing here is that, and I'm sure it's the case with so many other, especially in the area that we live in, our stories are very, very similar.
For sure.
Right.
There's a lot that like people like relate with, right? Like, like being born in the United States, but then feeling an attachment. And I'll be honest, like this attachment to like my Mexican pride is like more recent. And I say recent, I mean like not my young adolescence, right? Like I didn't really think about it all that much when I was like younger. I always knew I was Mexican, but there's, I've talked about an interesting story before where my school was heavily minority. I'd say it was like 80%. And it was about half of that minority was Latinos, mostly Mexicans in my neighborhood. And then the other half was black. And then you had maybe like 20% of, mixed of the others.
That's like 120%.
No, I said 40, 20.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Do the math, bro.
I can't.
And so that very much influenced my reality. And I've told this story before, right, about how I had very close like Mexican friends because it almost felt like first and second grade, all the Latino kids were put into one class, right? Because there was 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D. And we had those, and those were 1A was and 1B was mostly Latinos and so on and so forth. And third grade comes around and I walk into class and I'm like, yo, I'm in the wrong class.
Uh-oh.
Like, yeah, I like what's going on? Where are all my friends at, right? Like, all the friends that I had made the first 2 years, they're not here. And it was a majority black class. And then, so like, that was my first time kind of being uncomfortable with like my surroundings in a way that I guess I wasn't familiar with before. But that definitely actually pushed me to, I think, a more diverse future, right? Like my family plays a lot of basketball, and I finally had someone to play basketball with because my Mexican friends weren't playing basketball with me. And then it was interesting because as soon as I started hanging out with them, my Mexican friends started to like shun me and like not want to hang out with me. And then, you know, now I am who I am.
They look at them now. I bet they regret it. I bet they regret it.
Yeah, man, I'm sure they do, right? Because I'm cool as fuck.
Oh, obviously.
But yeah, so like you were saying, like there's a lot of things here that people can relate to, right? We come from like similar stories and similar backgrounds, just with like different influences. But no, yeah, I mean, like I definitely feel very Mexican, and when I started going to Mexico when I was younger, like definitely helped like grow that. Like my Spanish got a lot better. Like I'm fairly fluent. Like I will say, like we're from El Rancho, right? And so like our Spanish is very like rough around the edges. I do feel uncomfortable talking to people that like speak a very clean Spanish.
You mean like in the sense of like proper Spanish, like like educated, exactly. Well spoken?
Yeah, because like my parents weren't, right, and so like my dad went to like the 4th grade, and maybe not even the 4th grade. My mom went to like maybe the 5th, and this was again in a very very small pueblo, in the mountains of Durango, right? Like it's not the best. Like of course it's still an education, but I'm sure there's room for improvement there. And so yeah, like I feel uncomfortable in those spaces when I'm being challenged by people that have like a very strong, proper Spanish. And even just in general, when I go there, right? Like I said, I stick out like a sore thumb. I'm sure you felt much the same, like if you got to Mexico. But I'm more comfortable with that now, and I'm more comfortable being uncomfortable. And I think that started back like in that 3rd grade class when I was put in that situation. And yeah, I'm thankful for all aspects of, you know, my upbringing, and that's kind of how my identity has been shaped and formed. But yeah, that's about it, man. So with that all being said, man, I did have a couple of questions to ask.
Shoot.
In regards
I'm an open book.
Ni de aquí ni de allá, right? So again, that's about not fitting in here ni there. So just very to the point, where do you think you fit in?
In sense of just like my identity, my cultural identity? Mm-hmm. That's especially a weird question. Now. I guess I never really thought of it. I mean, like as I've gotten older or whatever, like that sense of, like I said earlier, I very much felt like I didn't belong here.
Yeah.
100% didn't belong here. And
did you feel unwanted or that you didn't fit in?
Both. Okay. Both. I felt like, being that my parents were undocumented for a very long time, they only recently got their, what's the term?
Congrats to them.
For
yeah,
sure.
the
terrible.
The actual word escapes me.
Residency. They got the residency.
Oh, the residents now?
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Yeah.
Are they going to try to become citizens?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. So they were undocumented for a very long time, right? And maybe you experienced this a little bit with your mom, I believe you said was.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Cool.
Yeah. She just became a resident maybe
gotcha.
years ago.
So just growing up, right? You live in when you're undocumented, you live in a constant state of fear. At least we did. Maybe some others, but at least we did. That at any moment they could potentially be deported.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
absolutely.
they're, undocumented or whatever. And that's just the way it is, right? So it was to the point where we couldn't really like travel, going out, even going out to a grocery store or out to like school, out to whatever, right? You have to go out.
Yeah. You have to live life.
Yeah. And at the time it was police, right? If there was a cop and he was like around you, he was around the corner, if God forbid he was behind you, if he was behind you, you were saying all the Hail Marys, all the Our Fathers, right? Like, please don't.
Because you felt the fear that your parents felt in those moments.
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy, right? Like I remember countless times of just driving. There's a cop behind us, and everything just goes silent. Everything just goes tense. And then as soon as that cop takes a turn, and you is no longer behind you, it's almost like a big like just relief, right?
It is a sigh of relief.
And so all of that, all those experiences just, compounding every day. There was, like I said, there wasn't other things. We couldn't travel, right? My mom's family's in California. I don't even know them, really. And that's not because we didn't want to. We're in a situation where, like, we couldn't really, we can't fly over there.
Yeah.
we ain't.
When you moved from California here, did you have a lot of family here?
Yeah, so my dad's side of the family is the one. So they met in California, right? They met in high school, I believe, and then they had me, right, high school sweethearts.
You're the oldest.
Yes,
you have a
I have
brother.
one younger brother who's 5 years older than I am. So he just turned 21 actually, about a month ago.
Okay, cool.
So
Shout out to Chris.
yeah, shout out. That's my boy.
What's his Twitch handle?
One Take Ortiz. Y'all go follow him.
Hey, go follow him.
Go follow it. Well, dang, I lost my train of thought for a second.
We're talking about. I asked you if you had family that had.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, my mom's family just kind of stayed there, but my dad's family started kind of slowly coming to Dallas, and they just kind of all followed each other, right?
Gotcha.
Just similar to how they were in Mexico. Like my older uncles and aunts, the ones that I was telling you have amnesty, they started going from Mexico to California, and then they started going from California to Dallas to Texas,
Gotcha.
and so we just kind of followed that. And so I don't know what caused that decision. I have no idea, but. My entire dad's family lives here, and my entire mom's family lives there.
Gotcha.
And we weren't able to really meet them or like.
So you
spend
think
time
that's
with them.
probably why you don't have a strong connection to your Guatemalan roots?
I mean,
because your
yeah.
mom didn't even have anybody to.
Yeah, and even her, like
Yeah.
proximity, right? Like you just never spend any time with them. Never, with my Guatemalan abuelita. Like I have very few memories of her, you know, and it's messed up, but it's not.
Have you tried to
Right.
connect with like that?
I mean,
aspect of you
no.
more
Every once in a
recently?
while, we'll talk on the phone or whatever.
Yeah.
We were really wanting to go over this holiday, spend it out there. My grandpa on that side of the family just turned 100, so we were trying
dang.
to go. Yeah,
Shout out.
yeah, for sure.
What's the secret?
For sure. I don't know. Like that.
Dude, 100's a long time.
It is, but
You lived through a lot of things.
can you imagine? Yeah, so he just turned 100. But yeah, so back to my point is we just grew up where we were very, very limited amount of things we could do and just had a fear.
Yeah.
And so it was slowly that fear turns to like resentment, turns into
Absolutely.
anger type stuff. And I just don't feel like I'm wanted. I feel like how could I be wanted here when they don't want my parents here?
For sure.
You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like if you want to kick my parents out, then you're not for me, you're against me. And so it turned, and for a while when I was younger, it was like, man, fuck this place.
Yeah.
Right? Like I just want to bounce. Like, I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, that just kind of.
And it's stories like that I think a lot of people have, right? Like, because especially as a kid, right? Like you said, like the police are kind of the face of that fear. Right? Because I didn't know that like ICE was a thing. I didn't know that there was a department of like immigration or homeland security or whatever they're called. And so the police are something that like you just fear.
Yeah.
Like you are, like you said, when they're you see them in the rearview mirror, when you see them walking around. Like I've seen my parents get in trouble with the law, you know, even for like just minor violations. And like you ask yourself, like, what's going to happen? Right? Like, could this escalate to the point where like I may not see my mother tomorrow? And then at that point, right, like that's a fear that as a child, like it can make a big impact. And especially with the relationship that you have with this country and the dynamics behind the way it's enforcing, you know, it's policing its people, right?
Yeah.
And like you said, right, like how can you want me but not my parents? Like when my parents are who I am.
Yeah, as a young kid, you don't understand that whole like, oh, they came here to adopt you, right?
Yeah,
You don't
exactly.
understand that, dude. You
Yeah.
just want to be with your mom and dad.
Yeah,
like,
and that's the thing is like it'd be different if like my parents were criminals. I'd be like, no, yeah, for sure, I get it.
dude, 100%. That's what's crazy, right? It's like we're not doing anything wrong, right? Like I understand, right? The
Like we
concept.
like there's like the initial sin, right? Like
Sure, but actively, right?
bullshit
They're
as it
just
is.
too hard work. My parents worked. I'm sure you're.
Absolutely.
So many Latin
Absolutely.
parents work their tails off.
Absolutely.
Right, and that's all you, as a kid, as a son, daughter, whatever. That's all you see, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, but to go back to your original question, I think you were asking how
Where
I
do you
fit
fit
in.
in?
Yeah. That back then, like I said, that's why it was kind of a resentment. It was like, man, I can't wait to bounce. I can't wait to leave. Now, just as you grow adult, you're able to grow up into adulthood, and you're able to just understand more, rationalize more. Now that they do have their residency, all this sort of stuff that's put into place, and now I just kind of feel, you know, a little bit here, a little bit there, like, you know, comfortable kind of, right? Like, I mean, where do I fit in? I think there is a place here for us. I think, you know, they do want to get their citizenship, and they do want to, you know, contribute and
that's another side of the coin, right? Like we just said that like they didn't want our parents, but then our parents want they want the United States.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, that they see the opportunity that,
And it's mostly
that
for
there's-
us at this point.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I remember, that's another thing. I remember I have like super clear memories of my dad saying like me siento como un perro que no like no querido. You know what I mean? You know how like you bring the dog home or whatever. Like, well, no one ever does that, but you hypothetically bring a dog home. Saca ese perro de aquí. Like, you know, nobody wants that dog in the house,
that's
right?
the Mexican dad reaction.
Yeah.
And then they're best friends.
Yeah, exactly. Talk about my dad. So yeah, I remember him just saying something like this, things along those lines. Like, if it was, and he didn't say it like to like guilt me or whatever.
Yeah.
But like he's like,
but it's true.
You know, it's something that he did for us, but he did it like without a single sense of remorse or regret, right? Because he wants, and I'm sure a lot of parents, but he wanted specifically to see his 2 kids grow up and be more than him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that, I mean, that was my
and that's very relatable as well, right? That's how a lot of people from like Latino backgrounds, because like I said, we are hardworking people, especially those that come from like I want to say like poverty, right? But like
no, we came from the mud. You feel me?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
No, I'm just kidding. And probably in our specific case, but not.
Yeah, not everybody, but for the most part, right? Like that's a trait that's very common amongst a lot of individuals in similar circumstance. No, much of the same, man. Like I definitely feel like nowadays, I feel like I do fit in most places. Although now I'm finding a way to not make myself fit in. Right.
Let me ask you something real quick as you're saying that. Sorry. So because for you, right, you said for a long time, I don't know exactly how long, you were not close to your Mexican sure. Background culture. So how did that kind of affect your own immediate bubble, I suppose? Like whether it was like your aunts, uncles, even your mom, dad, whatever.
Family definitely plays an influence like in that as well, right?
Did they start picking up on it?
Absolutely, they did. Like, right, like it started with like first my friends, right? Like I said, I stopped hanging out with them because I mean I went to recess and I wasn't gonna play soccer anymore, like because 1, they weren't even there, and 2, I didn't want to anymore. Started playing basketball, and that was nice. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're a little spot up shooter.
Hey, bro,
cock-over. You're the Mexican cock-over.
I was a 2-guard, yes sir. Yeah, and so then I started hanging around with them. Richard, right? He was my best friend for a long time. Shout out to Big Rich, right? Like we and him went to the same school from when we were in pre-K all the way through high school. And they saw that, hey, Rudy's best friend is like this big black kid. And they started to see me dress a certain way, right? Like I was rocking the tall tees, right? They were scratching my ankles.
Te vistes como morenito, huh? How many times did you get that?
Bro, all the time. Like literally all the time. And I used to walk home with one of my friends who her house was on the way to we passed my house on the way to her house. So we would walk up to my house and I would basically walk her almost home. And, my parents would never let that go, right? And they would tell the entire family, right? Like, oh, Rudy has a little black girlfriend. Blase, blase, blase. And, they always kind of put that on me. So that gets in your head and you start to think about those things as well. And I think it turned out fine, right? Like it didn't impact me in a negative way by any means. But my previous point, right, was that as far as like fitting in, nowadays, like I'm trying to make myself not fit in. Like, let me rephrase that. I don't want to change who I am to try and fit in, right? And that's kind of like the goal for I think a lot of people, right? Is we should be our authentic selves. And there's a huge group of people that feel this way we do. And I think that's where we belong, right? We belong with each other, right? And it's about having these kinds of conversations and saying like, hey, like this same reality, this same background that you have and that you feel, right? The issues that you have go through and that you feel, right? Like there's other people who go through those same things.
Yeah, you're not alone.
The same way. Exactly, right? And so that's where we belong. And I don't want to, if I'm in a space where it's, majority white people, right? Change the tone of my voice, change the way that I have conversations, like, and just the opposite, right? When I go to Mexico, I don't want to like force myself to act differently than who I am, right? Like I think there's a respect that I have for like my Mexican American upbringing, and I think it's just important for us to use each other as a soundboard and see that that there's a place for us.
For sure, yeah. Again, you're not alone, and we've learned that our stories are so similar. Absolutely. Right? Of course, they have their differences. We are our own person, but we have more in common than we have different.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
So,
No, man. So that's who we are, and we kind of delved a little bit into like the kind of topics that I think we're looking to have down the road. But I guess. Well, we don't want to dive too deep into it. This is just the intro pod, just kind of getting to know who we are, what the
give you a little
is.
taste, give you just a little something,
sample. That's Sam's sample. You know what I'm saying?
Wet your beak a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
But I guess we're recording this in early January. So with New Year's, just it feels like forever now ago, but it was just last week. Do you have any New Year's resolutions for the pod?
Get these gains, dude.
Yeah, dude.
Oh, for the pod. I'm sorry.
Yeah, not for yourself.
I'm sorry. Yeah, no, super sore. But for the pod, ultimately, I mean, I just want this thing to kind of grow. I'm not saying here like, oh, let's blow up and become the next. No. Like, I just want this to share this with other people, like we just said, because I do think it's important. There are a lot of people, you said it perfectly, that feel like they don't belong. They feel like they have to fake it. They have to be someone that they're not. And I think we can learn from each other. There's also a lot of divide, right? We can also speak about that in subsequent episodes and stuff. There's a lot of divide, not only amongst Latinos, but Latinos in other cultures and, just whatever,
absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
And just like you and I and people like us are similar, I'm sure we have so many similarities with people that are of African backgrounds, of Asian whatever.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So I just want this to kind
of... When I was talking to a friend, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but when I was talking to a friend... about the concept of the podcast, they're Nigerian, they immediately related, right? Like, yeah, there's a lot of the same kind of dynamics that you're discussing within our own communities, but us being from Texas, I think there's just a huge
melting pot.
There's a lot of us here, and so and even the United States, right? There's a lot of Latinos in the United States.
Yeah, and I think so. Take control of the mic again.
Go ahead.
What's it called? Yeah, so you alluded to it, and I that's something I really, really want to do. When we name this thing the Scattered Roots, I think the scatter, so to speak, not only speaks to our concept of not here, not there, ni de aquí, ni de allá type thing, but it also, I think, for me, alludes to everybody else's roots, the other roots of other people, right? Ideally, for me, hopefully, we're able to have people of other culture on at some point, whether as guests or whatever, so that we can ask, or we can talk. We can just have a conversation and see how much we have in common. Like you just said, in your case, the kid you were talking to was a Nigerian. Mm-hmm. So having Nigerians, anything, right? Nigerians, other people of other Latin countries, right? Other, whether it's South America, Central America, whatever.
I know
Caribbean.
Nothing about a lot of other Latino cultures.
Yeah. My mom's Guatemalan, but I know very little about
Hondurans. I don't know a lot about them.
Puerto Rico, I think I know like 3 Puerto Ricans, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So so that we can all learn, right? Because I think again that's the most important thing is just all learn about each other and realize that we are. We have at the end of the day, we are one race. We are, you know what I mean? So,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's my biggest goal. What about you? I don't know.
No, I think you kind of like transitioned into it a little bit, right? Like my biggest goal, I think, one was like to have conversation worth having, right? That kind of brings value to not just like our lives, but like to people listening, and then to just learn a lot, right? Like there's a lot of things that I don't know. There's a lot of sensations and like phenomena like within our culture that. We'll touch on and, we'll open the door and, there's a lot of research that we have to do. But just on this journey, like learning about myself, about you, about other cultures, like you said, I think that's my biggest goal for the year. And hopefully to just push out episodes that sound good and people.
And have fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have fun. I want to make, I don't want every episode to be super formal, super serious, right? Sure. We can have some lighthearted episode. What's better? Pozole or menudo? That's episode.
Trash.
Rudy?
Bro, it's disgusting.
Let's wrap it up because I'm about to come across this table.
Wrap it up then. No. Yeah, bro, you're not going to win me over on that.
All right.
All day.
You know what? Just go ahead. Hit the thing.
But, all right, man. So with that being said, I guess we just want to leave on the thought, if you've made it to the end of this, thank you guys. This is the introduction podcast. Hopefully we have some really good conversations. Just to give you an idea of what those conversations will be, some of the topics we'll be hopefully discussing, right? Corporate America and Latinos, education, politics, mental health. Hopefully this is something that we can have maybe like a couple of episodes on, bring someone on that has a background in this and, have that conversation.
That one should be done.
Yeah, that one deserves its due diligence.
Very important.
Absolutely. Holidays, right? Food, like we'll talk about all that stuff. relationships and the culture, right? Something that's a little bit interesting, I think, to talk about.
You gonna talk about your relationships, buddy?
No, bro. No. And yeah, so that's hopefully what we'll be bringing in the future. And
stay tuned.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys so much for listening. Y'all have a good one.
Hold up before you go. Where can they find you? What are your?
What's my?
Yeah, let the people know.
So my Instagram handle Rudy.dtx. Hey, if y'all can do me a favor, go report Rudy DTX.
Here we go.
This guy has 0 followers and he's holding my handle, bro.
Okay.
It's Rudy.dtx at the moment on Instagram. What about yourself?
And you can find me at Coach Kev Ortiz on Instagram.
And then we'll put up the information for the podcast specific social medias.
I believe it's Scattered Roots Pod, but I'm sorry, but that's still kind of a work in progress. It's being set up. It's got 0 followers, got nothing on there.
Yeah, we haven't done anything with it yet.
Bear with us as well.
Yeah, we'll put some content on there once we kind of.
If there's like audio issues, let us know.
Yeah, and please provide any feedback, like friends, family, and the topics as well. Anything that you guys want to hear us talk about, anything that's of interest, stories that you maybe thought of when you were listening to this.
Yeah, send them to Rudy.
Send them to me. I'll definitely read them and bring them up, and I'll put it on the docket for us to discuss if I think it contributes. And hopefully that's the kind of engagement we're looking to get. So yeah, thank you guys, and y'all have a good rest of your day.